Hello everyone, we will be dealing with course 103, that is learning and teaching. This course is incorporated by Savitribai Phule Pune University in B.Ed first year syllabus. In today's video, we'll see in detail about introduction of course, concept of learning, definition and meaning of learning. Learning is a process, not a product. The goals in learning, different levels of learning, types of learning, difference between formal, informal and non-formal learning. Actually, the course learning and teaching has been conceptualized on the basic premise that learning and teaching should be viewed holistically. This course attempts to facilitate student teachers to understand learning and teaching as a process which works for construction of knowledge. Psychological and socio-cultural perspectives of learning will be discussed in this course. Various theoretical constructs of learning which will help you to identify the appropriate learning strategies for facilitating construction of knowledge. This course will help you in analyzing the complex nature of teaching learning process and understanding various dimensions of teaching learning process. This course will explain the role of a teacher as a professional as well as a facilitator for learning. Let's see the introduction of learning. Is it important to know about the meaning of learning in education? Yes, it is important for a student teacher to know about learning's concept and meaning because teaching is not complete without learning. Teaching and learning complement each other. A teacher must know about how learner learns, and this is the reason teacher gains knowledge about the concept and meaning of learning in education. Learning without reflection is a waste. Reflection without learning is very dangerous. Learning to read, learning to ride a bicycle, to use a computer, to play a guitar, etc. These are some examples of learning. Each one of us learns something intentionally or accidentally. Every moment you learn something because of the varied experiences you have in your life. In the educational process, the central idea is child's learning. The child starts to learn right from his birth and goes on learning throughout his life. An infant is quite helpless at the birth, but slowly he or she learns to adapt himself or herself to the environment around him or her. Best example is that a child approaches a burning matchstick. The child burns his hand and withdraws himself away from the burning matchstick. The child learns to avoid not only the burning matchstick but also all burning things. When this happens to the child has learned that if one touches a flame, one gets burnt. In this way, the change in the behavior of an individual occurs through direct or indirect experiences. The changes in the behavior brought about by experiences is called learning. This is very simple explanation of learning. Let's move toward the concept of learning. Learning is a natural phenomenon which is natural to all organisms including both humans and animals. Learning affects child development and the child learns new habits only through the process of learning and through imitated tradition and customs. Intellectual skills are also developed through learning. The decision of right and wrong, the concept of justice, etc. are developed through learning itself. The process of learning is a continuous throughout the life. Learning is the base of maturation. Learning affects our language, custom and traditions, attitude and beliefs, personalities and our goals. In fact, it would not be wrong to say that learning affects all aspects of our life. Learning is a key concept of psychology. Learning phenomenon is very important for the development of human beings. Various psychologists have explained learning from a different point of view. Learning is nothing but the modification of behavior as a result of experiences. The child brings changes in his behavior after gaining experience from the environment. Everything a learner does or think can be called learning. Learning is a relatively permanent change in behavior of the learner. It even brings changes in the personality traits of the learner. Let's see definition of learning. Various psychologists and educationists have defined the concept and meaning of learning in their own ways. According to Crow and Crow, learning is the acquisition of habit, knowledge and attitudes. It involves new ways of doing things in order to overcome obstacles or to adjust new situations. It enables the person to satisfy interest to certain goals. So, according to Crow and Crow, learning is nothing but the habits of gaining knowledge and changing in attitude, learning new things, doing new things and overcoming weaknesses and obstacles and adjustment in new situation for achieving desired goals. According to E.R. Hilgert, learning is a relatively permanent change in behavior that occurs as a result of prior experience, but it could be said that change in behavior indicates that learning has taken place and that learning is a change in behavior and acquiring knowledge. So, according to Hilgert, learning is a permanent change in behavior of a learner, as I just gave one example of child touching a burning matchstick and burning his hand. So, the child gets the experience of burning and learn from that situation. So, he or she gets prior experience of burning hands and changes his or her behavior after getting certain experience of this situation. Let's see the meaning of learning. Learning is a broad term. Learning includes all activities which affect children along with the growing process. The mental development of child occurs as a result of the changes that takes place in his behavior continuously. The child goes on learning through different experiences. From a psychological point of view, learning has been explained stimulus-response relationship. Learning is a key process in human behavior. All living organisms are learning in different ways, in which an individual is constantly interacting with and influenced by the environment. This experience makes him or her to change or modify his or her behavior in order to deal effectively with the situation. Learning is a change in behavior influenced by the environment as stated above. The skill, knowledge, habit, attitude, interest and other personality characteristics are all the results of learning. Learning is change in behavior. It can be better or worse. The change in behavior must be relatively permanent and may last fairly long time. Learning is a permanent change in behavior directly or indirectly. Learning is predicted on the basis of change in behavior. This change can be negative or positive. Learning is a process through which the behavior of child changes or gets modified. Learning is a permanent change in the behavior is the result of experience. Learning can be termed as mental process as it is a psychological process. And learning is a continuous process. Knowledge is like an ocean, so knowledge gained through the studies, which is repetitive behavior, is nothing but acquiring knowledge through skills, teaching, instructing or experiencing. Learning is a process by which behavior of an individual gets changed, shaped or controlled. Learning is a constructive process. It constructs knowledge. Learning involves the individual's brain, body. For example, motor learning, intellectual development, understanding a concept or gaining different experiences from the different situations. Learning can be involved like learning in a group, organization, society, community, etc. Learning takes place anywhere or in any situation. So in this way, we understood the definition and meaning of learning. Let's move towards the sub-point. Learning is a process, not a product. Many of the learning theories developed during the early part of 20th century stated learning as an end product or outcome rather than a process. Even today, our education system conditions us to view learning as a product. The goal of education is often thought to be the final result. Most of the emphasis is placed on the final answer, that is product. However, the reality is that we only get to see small portion of learning in the final product. The actual learning occurs during the process. Learning involves individual to make sense and develop an understanding of the world in which they live. Learning takes place when an individual is able to make connections and relate various parts of subject matter to each other and then infer which may come next or also be connected. From this perspective, learning can be seen as a continuous process rather than an isolated instance of an acquisition of a specific piece of knowledge. This also supports the belief that learning is a lifelong endeavor. Defining process and product. A process is a series of steps designed to lead to a particular outcome or goal. And what is a product? A product is the outcome or goal of a process. In learning, the product could be test, result, essay, presentation, visual displays, or physical models. Learning as a process versus a product. If you support the belief of learning as a product, you tend only to focus on the final outcome. If you support the notion that learning is a process, you tend to see the steps leading to the outcome and see those steps as an opportunity to adjust or build on. For example, an individual completes a math problem that is in several steps. In order to accurately assess learning, you would need to look at the individual steps and not just the final answer. The individual may have missed a simple step and therefore ended with the wrong answer. On the other hand, they could have incorrectly came to the correct answer while missing important steps. Let's see the goals in learning. The goals in learning can be classified in two broad categories. First is the acquisition of knowledge and the second is acquisition of skills. The following subdivisions are comprehended under the broad heading of the major goals, the acquisition of knowledge. Acquisition of knowledge, associative learning, appreciation. These points comprises the main heading acquisition of knowledge. First one is perception. Association refers to the acquisition of specific knowledge about objects or directly stimulating the same at any particular moment. And object comes before our sense organs, we get the sensation of it and attach meaning to it. On the basis of our past experience, this is the perception. For example, a girl sees a woman in the past, the woman has fed her. On the basis of that experience, she comprehends that a woman is nurse or mother. This is known as the perception of the woman. The type of learning at perceptual level is known as perceptual learning. Second one is conception. Conception means the acquisition of organized knowledge in the form of concept of general ideas which transcends any particular percept. Percept refers to an individual on a specific situation. Concept is general or universal in its. The child gets the perception of orange, apple, banana, etc. and is able to locate certain general qualities in them. On the basis of these, he or she forms conception of fruits. Next one is associative learning. Associative learning, the response to memory, both as the deliberate recall and recognition past experiences and habit, automatic memory due to association. Associated learning is a fundamental to all other learnings. Next one is appreciation. Appreciation is the acquisition of ideas, attitudes and dispositions characterized by an emotional tone. In our knowledge, this factor is present as the effective or feeling elements. When we talk about an ideas, we are talking about a concept which is colored by appreciation. This means that the ideal is a concept which is attached with some worthwhile values. Under skills are included the sensory motor processes like writing, reading, musical performances, language acquisition in its vocal aspect as a drawing, and the art generally. Learning is not regarded as an active process. It is not considered as process of absorption of knowledge, nor the mere reading of books or listening to lectures is object of reproducing what has been read or heard. True learning is enrichment of experiences. It is because of this view of learning process that today we find an emphasis on activity programs, learning by doing, the project method, self-activities, etc. It is rather than on book learning, learning modification through experiences or the behavior patterns. The individual interacts with the environment. He or she is stimulated by it and respond to it. When he or she responses are modified to experiences and training, we can say that learning has taken place. The learning process in the sense of active learning of modification of behavioral pattern is not simple affair. In human being particularly, it requires training and proper control of factors that condition learning. Let's move towards the levels of learning. There are 5 levels of learning: facts, information, know-how, comprehension and wisdom. First one is fact. The first level of learning, this with the facts, detail of data which results from direct observation and research fact, make up the most basic level of learning. Taken on their own at this level, facts have no direct application, but without facts, you cannot move on the other level of learning. Second one is information. The second level of learning is with the information, observational data in a usable form. The description that information consists of: tell who, what, when, where and how many. With this information, you can begin to make use of that facts. Third one is know-how. Know-how, the focus of the third level of learning is know-how consists of a collection of description in the form of instructions. Know-how is about having the instruction you need to make use of the information you have. With know-how, you derive knowledge from experiences. Fourth one is comprehension. The fourth level of learning deals with the comprehension. Comprehension answer to the questions why. At the comprehension level, a learning composed of explanations. When you understand why, you are better able to use that knowledge you already have. Last one is wisdom. Wisdom is the focus of the fifth and final level of learning. Wisdom is the ability to evaluate, and it incorporates the values. It is essential for the development. Using know-how and comprehension without wisdom can result in action and don't work for overall mission of the organization. So these are 5 levels of learning. Let's see the types of learning. There are 3 types of learning: non-formal learning, formal learning and informal learning. Formal learning is nothing but full-time educational pathway, structured, planned and facilitated. Formal learning takes place in school, universities and colleges. Formal learning comprises diplomas and degrees. About non-formal learning, it is complementary learning activities, structured, planned, facilitated. In non-formal learning, courses, workshops, seminars, trainings are there. It is based on skills and capabilities. In informal learning, it deliberate, self-directed learning, unstructured, spontaneous, self-motivated learning. It takes place anywhere. It focuses on personal development and self-fulfillment. Difference between formal, informal and non-formal learning. Aims of informal learning, no objectives but sudden learning. Aims of formal learning, certificate to get an employment. Aims of non-formal learning, to increase knowledge and enhance skills. Place of informal learning, no definite place as such for informal learning. Place for formal learning, educational institutions, colleges and university. Place for non-formal learning, it can be home or library or any open space. About the age group, for informal learning, any age, no grouping as such. About the formal learning, prescribed students are grouped into classes. About non-formal learning, any age, no grouping. About the curriculum of informal learning, not fixed as such. About formal learning, curriculum is fixed. About non-formal learning, curriculum is flexible and need-based. Textbook and examination. For informal learning, no requirement of textbooks and examination as such. For formal learning, textbooks and examination as per recommendations. For non-formal learning, instructional material as per the course. So these are basic differences between formal, informal and non-formal learning. So in this way, we learned about the objective of the course, introduction about the learning, concept and meaning of the learning, definition of learning. Learning is a process, not a product. Goals in learning, 5 levels of learning, that is fact, information, know-how, comprehension and wisdom. types of learning, that is formal, informal and non-formal learning, and difference between formal, informal and non-formal learning. Thank you one and all.